the impeachment of Judge Boasberg, and that's something that prompted Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberts to issue this rare statement that said impeachment is not an appropriate response, pointing to the appellate process existing for disagreement. Who's right here?
Yeah, well, Chief Justice Roberts does have a history of firing off these little missives. For example, when Chuck Schumer stood before the court and threatened Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, saying you've unleashed a whirlwind and you're going to pay a price, you're not going to know what hit you. Chief Justice Roberts came out then and said that he thought that these sort of threats were inappropriate. I think the difference here is that whatever you might think of what the president has said, President Trump, that is, he is simply suggesting that the Congress make use of a process that's laid out in the Constitution. He's not engaging in the sort of threats or intimidation tactics that Chief Justice Roberts rebuked Chuck Schumer for. And of course, we do know that after Chuck Schumer made those remarks, there were indeed threats against those particular justices.
I'm sorry, you said that Congress make use?
That's correct. The impeachment authority is vested in Congress.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about what he's doing when it comes to these deportations. So I do want to ask you, the federal judiciary writ large has delivered many defeats to the liberal agenda of late. And you hear President Trump taking aim at the federal judiciary here with a pretty big criticism. But we should note that the Supreme Court, while it granted Trump expanded presidential immunity, it's overturned Roe v. Wade, affirmative action in college admissions, expanded gun rights, blocked Biden's student loan relief plan. Is it safe to assume you are okay with the appellate process that led to those outcomes?
Well, we have a process in the United States judicial system. That's absolutely correct. There's also a long history of politicians being critical of court decisions. There was actually a whole book written called American Politicians Confront the Court. I'm sure you remember President Obama when he called out and criticized the Supreme Court as they're sitting right there during the State of the Union. And I do think that some of these recent decisions are very troubling and actually go to the core of the president's
But if you have an issue with President Obama saying what he said during his State of the Union, do you have an issue with Trump? You don't have an issue with Trump saying to impeach a judge?
What I said is that the president is expressing his view about making use of a legal process. And, you do have to question what Chief Justice Roberts said to some extent, that, mere disagreement with an opinion is not the basis for using that power. I mean, how far are we going to stretch that principle? If you had a judge who insisted on reviving the Dred Scott decision and decided that he was going to move forward with that, whatever the Supreme Court said, then is that something that we wouldn't, as the House of Representatives, have a right and a responsibility to take a look at? So, look, I'm not someone who's going to say we should be, starting impeachment proceedings against individual judges with based on individual decisions. But I also think that it is a power that's there in the Constitution, that it's the right of the House to exercise and the Senate then to conduct a trial. And the Chief Justice and the President can both weigh in on where they think it is or is not appropriate to use it. But ultimately, it's the responsibility of Congress as set forth in the Constitution.
I guess we'll see if you decide to proceed with that. I do want to ask you about some Doge cuts. You had a town hall last night, a tele-town hall. And I do want to note for people who don't know your district, you represent most of the Sierra Nevada, which is just a beautiful part of California that has a number of national forests as well. I'm not exaggerating, and I am a Californian, so I could be biased, but I will just say I think it goes without saying. It's gorgeous. Lake Tahoe, Mono Lake, Death Valley, it's this spring and summer playground. And the New York Times is reporting almost 4,000 campsites across many of California's 18 national forests could close for part or all of the summer season, according to this internal U.S. Forest Service spreadsheet they got to look at. Do you know how many of those campsites are in your district?
Well, you're absolutely right about my district. I have the good fortune of representing the most beautiful district in the state of California, maybe even the whole country. It's also the largest district in the state of California. It's about 450 miles north to south, covering 10 different counties, a number of national forests. It includes Lake Tahoe. It includes Death Valley. And so access to these forests, to the parks, to recreation, to these natural wonders is incredibly important, both for our residents and for folks who want to visit. And we've conveyed that to the administration. As a matter of fact, just wrote a letter this last week with several of my colleagues in the House of talking about the importance of enabling our parks to be able to staff up for the peak visitation seasons that are coming soon. And one way to do that is by providing direct hire authority to the individual parks. I'm also concerned about, making sure we have the resources for fire mitigation and forest management projects. We've had some of the worst wildfires.
I asked you, do you know how many campsites are in your district, and have you gotten an answer to that letter?
There's quite a few campsites in my district.
I mean,
that
are going.
How many?
The question I asked you is how many of those campsites that could be closed are in your district?
Again, I don't have a specific number of campsites in my district.
Okay,
but I
have you gotten an answer to your letter?
It's a very important part of the character of our district, and we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that folks have access, and that's what we wrote at the administration about this last week.
Okay, because we're talking 3 visitor centers in El Dorado National Forest. Could close because of low staffing, including the loss of all administrative staff at the district office. The team that manages the Lake Tahoe Basin area, this is all according to the New York Times, noted a 33% reduction in recreational staff and the termination of the only permanent wilderness ranger position for Desolation Wilderness, which is one of the most popular wilderness areas in all of the United States, according to the Forest Service. So you're talking about staffing up. But that appears to be perhaps some of the least of your problems right now, because they're staffing down even from what would be lower seasonal numbers. Have you gotten an answer from the White House to your letter?
Well, in reality, actually, and you mentioned Tahoe, which is also in my district, one of the truly great wonders we have in the entire country. I just shepherded through the House of Representatives and was signed into law.
But had they answered your letter?
The Lake Tahoe Restoration Reauthorization Act, which is going to bring up to $300 million in additional funding to the Tahoe area.
Should I take that as a no, Congressman Kiley?
We're protecting that funding, and that we get the folks that we need in order to maintain access to our parks.
So they have not answered your letter?
It was just sent a few days ago. But we have the administration has expressed its commitment to working with us to make sure that we have the staffing levels that we need in order to maintain access to our parks. I mean, I think that's something that that's a value that we all share. These are truly national treasures. It's an important part of the character of California and of my district in particular. And so we're going to be working together to make sure that we have all the resources that we need.
Yeah, it's huge. It's, as I said, stunning. A very stunning area. Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you so much.